Welcome back to Civic Waves. I'm your host, Mir.I.am. This is the show where we slow it down a little bit, break it down. Community policy, what matters, and who decides. Now, on this show, for those just getting introduced to it, we talk about the people who are doing the work, shaping the conversation, helping our communities, and better understanding the decisions that affect our everyday lives, okay? Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about environmental justice, Black and brown policy power, and what it means to make sure that the communities that are most impacted by this environmental harm are actually centered in the decision making. And we're also going to touch briefly on voting. My guest today is Dr. Jovita Lee Miller. She is a North Carolina native and a graduate of Meredith College with a BA in International Studies and a postgraduate diploma in Business Administration. She also earned her MPA from NCCU, shouts out all my Eagles, and completed her doctorate in organizational leadership at Gardner-Webb University. Dr. Lee's advocacy, policy, and justice work spans both state and national levels with a focus on environmental communities of interest and Black and brown communities. She serves as program and policy director for North Carolina Black Alliance and Advanced Carolina, and she convenes the North Carolina Black and Brown Policy Network, a statewide network of more than 30 Black and Brown-led organizations. She's also the co-founder of the Meredith College Black Alumni Collective and a proud member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. Her work has included disaster relief, environmental justice organizing, policy support, community-centered advocacy, and education. And most recently, Dr. Lee Miller was appointed by Governor Josh Stein to serve on the Governor's Environmental Justice Advisory Council. They work to elevate historically marginalized voices in environmental policy making. Dr. Lee Miller, thank you so much for joining me on Civic Waves. What a resume.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with the organization itself. For listeners who may not be familiar, what is the NC Black Alliance and what does it do?
Yeah, so our organization, North Carolina Black Alliance, we are a 25-year-old organization this year. And so we are an intergovernmental organization. And so basically what that means is we are an organization that has both programmatic work and also holds relationship with elected officials, specifically Black elected officials across the state at all levels. Every Black elected official that chooses to accept is a member of the North Carolina Black Alliance. And so we work with them through training, through co-governance work, and then we also have our programmatic work where environmental justice comes into play, and then also our access to health care, education, criminal justice, and democracy and economic justice as well.
You all are doing some incredible, amazing work. So you serve as the policy director for Advanced Carolina also?
Correct. So I'm the policy director for the C4 Advanced North Carolina and the deputy director now of Black Alliance.
So how do their missions connect? What's the intersection there?
Yeah, so with North Carolina Black Alliance, obviously that's the older organization. And so that is our nonpartisan work. That is where we do our civic education. And then our 501c4, that is where the bulk of our organizing capacity is. That's also where we're able to do independent expenditures, which is essentially endorsements. And then we also can do political purpose work and primary purpose work where we can essentially sink our teeth a little bit more into the issues past where a C3 can go.
Now, people hear words like advocacy and organizing and policy, and they may not know what that necessarily looks like day to day. So what does a typical work day for you and the organization look like?
Sure. So my day can consist of really anything. So this week, we actually co-hosted an advocacy day with one of our primary partners, Black Voters Matter. Shout out to them. And so we had our advocacy day this week where we were talking about the various issue areas that impact our communities. And so that looks like, galvanizing community, allowing for them to come into the North Carolina General Assembly, have conversations with elected officials, and really be able to have and elevate the conversations that they want to have and elevate to elected officials. And so we support that type of work, but also advocacy in district. So community engagement, having community events or community education sessions around the various issues and all of the different policies that are moving both state level and locally and also federally also. And so having those conversations all of the time, I think one of the misconceptions around organizing is that it is just GOTV work, and that is not the case. Organizing is 365. And so we have to be in community every single day, making sure that our folks are up to speed because these things are coming at us very fast.
Especially in today's world, it's like 100 things per minute.
Yes.
I want to ask you, before we dig a little bit into the environmental justice, what do you feel like is one issue that people experience every day that they don't realize is tied to policy?
That's a great question. I would.
Because I feel like
definitely-
people
yeah.
distance in their minds.
Yeah.
And, people say, I'm not doing politics. Da, 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 da. There's so many things
Yeah.
in our world today that are tied to some type of policy. So you have to be involved in some way.
I absolutely agree. I think right now, the economic instability that folks are experiencing is one of the top things that folks are not connecting back. So to give a little context, North Carolina is the last state in the nation without a budget. And that means something. That means that first we're embarrassed. So that's one thing. But then the other thing is so we're working with old money. So we're working with allocations that aren't aligned with the current cost of living. And so when we're thinking about, for example, our educators, we've lost over 19,000 educators in the last 2 years because they've walked away from the profession because we cannot come to an agreement as a state with their adequate pay. That's the foundation. None of us are in our positions in life without our first educator. And so a lot of those things are not connecting back to policy, but in people's minds, but it absolutely is. And so when folks are saying, I'm kind of removed from politics, I'm removed from policy, it's not removed from you because your day-to-day is being impacted.
Literally every single thing, and including the air that we breathe and the water that we drink.
Yes.
Which I'm really concerned about.
Yeah.
Especially with all these data centers and a lot of regulations and provisions being rolled back, it seems like every single day. Now, when people hear about environmental justice, I don't know if they really know what that means. So can you kind of break down in everyday language what that looks like?
Sure. So environmental justice essentially is injustice, right? And so it's the presence of harmful corporations in communities. Most oftentimes you'll see a lot of the harmful corporations, practices, behaviors operating in Black and brown communities specifically, or low income white communities. And so they target those areas because they are not confident that they can get it passed or get it built in the affluent community, because the affluent community wouldn't have that.
Right.
And they can push back, and they have the political capital in order to push back and be like, no, that's not coming in my neighborhood. And so they toss it over to vulnerable communities. And so when you're thinking about when you hear or see such and such county is on bottled water, well, that's because their drinking water is unsafe, or they're having to boil their water before they use it to cook or clean in their household. Or when you're thinking about environmental justice in a way of our air that we breathe, you're thinking about Charlotte, right? That's one of the more urban areas of our state, but they have consistently rated very low in their air quality. And that's because of all of the industrial presence and all of the pollution that accumulates in that area. And so those are the types of things that would be under the guise of environmental justice. And so it's a movement that was birthed here and is still being worked on today.
So what do you feel like are some of the things that the everyday listener and person needs to be aware of in terms of the environment that are going on right now, that we need to have our alerts on, that we need to be making sure that our voices are heard, that we need to make sure that we're showing up in any type of, meetings to be able to push back? What are some of the things that we need to know about right now?
Absolutely. And so I would, one, be paying attention to the regulatory rollbacks. So at the federal level, there are several rollbacks that have been presented around environmental protection. So like an agency like the EPA that was created to make sure that corporations stayed in line when they were building in different areas. Well, this current administration has decided that they want to loosen said restrictions and regulations. And so that means that there's essentially kind of this wild, wild west going on with corporations, data centers being able to pop up and not be regulated.
Yeah.
And so that is a danger to community. So I would encourage folks to be paying attention when you're seeing headlines saying, environmental regulatory rollback or something like that. I would pay attention to that. I also would be engaging city council and county commission meetings also, because a lot of the decisions around data centers, since that's one of the more popular topics right now, are being made at those meetings. So we're looking to the state, but a lot of the moratoria that you're looking for, a lot of the decision making is happening at your local meetings. And so we're encouraging folks to attend their city council meetings, to attend their county commission meetings, to learn more about that. Also engage with organizations that work around environmental justice to find out what are some of the danger zones in our state, what are some of the counties that need our help. And so I would also encourage folks to stay engaged with organizations doing the work to make sure that we can kind of have an all hands on deck situation, because there's a lot going on. Our air is dangerous. PFAS is still a growing concern in North Carolina.
And there were recently regulations, I think, rolled back in terms of that as well.
Correct. And so now, we've had this concern. It's kind of rose its head in 2017 in North Carolina, but it's a 40-year-old issue of PFAS being in our waterways and in our different systems.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And it's moving so quickly.
Correct.
And it's like, these resources are finite. We don't, once the water is all bad and the air quality, it goes, there's not anything we can do.
Correct.
And it's just scary because it's like these things are acting like they can be replenished and fixed. And
right.
It can't.
It cannot, especially like when we think about when they're constructing these corporations and they're tearing down all of our forestry and they're like, oh, the trees will grow back. Not in any of our lifetimes. And so like we're losing those resources in real time, just like you said.
Scary.
Yeah.
So congratulations, first of all.
Oh, thank you.
On being appointed by Governor Stein to the Governor's Environmental Justice Advisory Council. What did that feel like when that happened? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. I was excited, but I was excited because I was eager to be able to kind of build that bridge between community and government, and really be able to build or continue building that trust in community. And so it felt like a perfect opportunity for me to be able to kind of be in conversations where, potential policy could be influenced across the state and also give recommendation. I think that's also been one of my favorite things. One of the things that the council does and has done in the last few months is given recommendations to the current governor's administration around here's what communities saying, here's the feedback that we're actually getting from the ground, and here's what you need to implement. And so having kind of a position where I can kind of advocate in real time has been really important to me.
I think that's really awesome that you're a part of that. And it just makes sense for you to, sometimes things just make sense.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of voting in North Carolina. It's
I sorry to laugh, but yeah,
it just seems like it's always something. And with a lot of the governor's powers being rolled back, it's not a lot that he can do. And so tell us some things that we need to look out for, especially with midterms coming, and this being really one of the most important elections, if not the most important election of our lifetimes. Some things we need to be aware about and to just make sure that we have in our mind as it relates to voting.
Absolutely. And so you hit it. One of the things that I want to name for folks is that our governor, and not just specific to Stein, the office of the governor here in North Carolina, has one of the weakest veto powers in the country. And so when we're looking for the governor to veto a bill, he can't veto every bill. And one of the types of bills that he can't veto is redistricting. So when they're redrawing the maps, his hands are tied. He does not have the power to walk that back. And so when we decided that we needed new maps mid-decade in October, there was nothing that the current governor's administration could have done to prevent that. And so thinking about voting for this year, it is critically important. We want folks to know that the plan needs to start right now. We really don't want folks to start thinking about voting, thinking about how they're planning to vote in October. It's too late. We need folks to already be making a plan now. If you're planning to vote absentee, start to look up the deadlines for when you need to submit your absentee ballots. Start making a plan. Already have community conversations. Have conversations within your family around what's going on and the importance of voting, because it is going to be an all hands on deck type of midterm this year. We need everybody to cast their ballot in this midterm election. And so be looking out for when they are redrawing our maps or trying to create new rules through not just the General Assembly, but we also need to be paying attention to our boards of elections, county boards of elections, but specifically our state board of election. Even right now, they have proposed rules, 3 of them, one of which is going to extremely limit our ability to have our cultural events like Souls to the Polls and Strolls to the Polls and Party at the Polls. So they are literally
and
targeting
DJs at the polls.
Yeah, so it's literally targeting specific communities. The way that we galvanize and get our folks to the polls, there's a specific target on our back around that. And so we need folks to also be paying attention to those things. And there's actually a public comment period open right now that folks can write a comment, submit a comment now into July 15th around those proposed rules for the Board of Election. And so those are the types of ways that folks can get engaged.
I just sit here and I'm just like, what was the reason? Like,
literally,
there's so
why?
much thing. Like,
there's so many things. We could have been passing a budget. We could have been doing anything that we need to do, but they just made it up.
It's like with so many things, like, why don't we need clean drinking water?
Right.
Like,
Why is
why
that an
don't
argument?
we need our air not polluted? What's the problem with having souls to the polls and helping people who might not be able to get to the polls, or DJs at the polls to be able to give people energy as they wait in line?
Right.
What's wrong with those things?
Exactly. Nothing is wrong with it. Nothing at all is wrong with those things. But they know what communities they are targeting, unfortunately. It's very clear. And so for us, it is a matter of we got to keep going anyway. And so nothing that we're doing is wrong. Nothing that we're doing is harming anything. But they want to dilute the power of our vote. That is a real thing. We are in a real fight around that right now. And we need our communities to understand that. And so folks that are like, oh, my vote doesn't count, whatever. If it did not, we would not be going through these battles right now if it legitimately did not count. And so they are counting on us to give up, to be like, you know what? They've taken everything away. What's the point? But that should just motivate us to go even harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I let you get out of here, because you have such a wealth of knowledge, so we're going to have you probably come back monthly.
That's fine. That is fine.
Especially leading up to everything, so everybody stays informed. The Voting Rights Act and the way that that's going to affect things especially for Black and brown communities in the South going forward. Is there a pathway forward? What can we do to push back against us just being gutted of all these rights that people literally have died for, been beaten for, and a lot of those people are still alive?
Yeah,
like
they
my
are.
mom, when she's still here, my parents, and they're boomers, and they were segregated,
Yeah.
At this point, we've done so much fighting. And we've only had these rights for 60 or so years, and now they're being pushed back. So what at this point can we do with the Supreme Court doing what they did?
Well, I think we need to think about the importance of our courts and elections, right? And so I don't want to sugarcoat. It's going to be a hard road ahead, because essentially what the decision has done is make it extremely difficult for attorneys to be able to prove intent, because now they want us to prove intent, like they meant to draw disproportionate districts. And that is a very hard thing to prove in the court of law. So I do not want to mislead anyone that this road will not be hard ahead. But it's not all lost. There's more that we can do. And I think it starts with the conversation around the courts. The courts is often the forgotten part of the ballot. A lot of folks skip it. They don't even know or are aware of who's on the ballot for the courts. And so not just our U.S. Supreme Court, but our state Supreme Court. Redistricting cases have been tried both at the U.S. Supreme Court and the state Supreme Court. And our state Supreme Court is on the ballot this year. And so really educating folks around the importance of courts and the role that they play in our democracy is going to be critical. We've done some recent polling around folks' understanding of courts and the role that they play and how they impact the decision making, and it's low. It's very low. And so we want folks to understand that importance. And so those conversations are happening now, and we need help having those conversations. So if you are, a person that is inclined to read more and do more around our courts, have those conversations with your voting members and your family, making sure that they don't skip that part of the ballot because they don't understand it or don't recognize the names. Like having that deep education is going to be critically important. And then also we still have to turn out the vote. Like nothing is going to shift if we don't turn out the vote. And so if we're thinking about folks that will be in positions to where we can kind of create the backup plan now, we're going to need people that understand what just happened, understand the significance of it, the impact that it'll have in community, and folks that are willing to rebuild, because this is a rebuilding season. We got knocked down, but we need folks that are committed to rebuilding. And we've been here before as far as being in a season of rebuilding. Like we've had to rebuild as communities several times over. When you think about the riots that have happened, even just in this state and across the nation, every time we built up, they tore it down. And it's the same practice that we're going to have to execute now.
Well, Dr. Lee Miller, we truly appreciate you joining us on Civic Waves to talk about environmental justice and voting and Black and brown community power. Like I said, we're definitely going to have you back.
Absolutely.
Anyone that's listening right now, how can they get in touch and stay up to date with you as well as NC Black Alliance and Advance Carolina?
Sure. So you can follow me at I am Dr. Lee on Instagram. And then you can also follow our Instagram as an organization at NC Black Alliance. We're also on Facebook, spelled out North Carolina Black Alliance. We're also on Blue Sky and Threads. And so you can keep up to date with everything that we have going on. And if you want to see more of our events and our programmatic work, you can visit us at www.ncblackalliance.org.
We want to thank our special guest, Dr. Jovita Lee Miller, Program and Policy Director of the North Carolina Black Alliance and Advanced Carolina, who also serves on the Governor's Environmental Justice Advisory Council. That does it for this week's edition of Civic Waves. I'm Mir.I.am. I'll see you next Sunday morning.